Hi, my name is Kerry Critchlow from RCR Recording Studios, and today we're going to continue to go over how to write and produce a song. Now, over the last several weeks, we've been going over these first few steps here, how to find your inspiration, laying down the foundations, figuring out your templates, and getting into a little bit of the arrangement and things like this. And today, we're going to focus primarily on this filling in the details. And this is all the little things in your music that take it from just kind of like a just chords and whatever, and really bring it to life. This is the part that I've said this before, but steps 1 to 3 is probably about 70 to 80% of writing your music. Step 4 is probably about that last 20 to 30%, but it's very important because it's this last kind of 20 to 30% that really takes your song to the next level and makes it feel more alive, more interesting, keeps people's attention, and just kind of adds that magic touch, if you will, or that like intangible it factor. All right. And so it's a very, very important part of production. And it's good to get a gauge on how, to get your mind wrapped around how you can go about doing this. Now, filling in the details, this can entail quite a lot of different things. It can include stuff like little ear candy or things that kind of just grab your attention real quickly and then kind of go away. It can include drum fills and things like that, things that are going to bring your song more into and help transitions into your verses and choruses and things like that. It can include lyrics or a melody of some sort. And so, like, this is like a very important part of the process here. And we're going to be going over that today. And as we're doing all of this, we're going to make sure that we're asking ourselves the question, does this sound good to me? You plan to check and adjust. You kind of have like an idea of like trying something out. You do the idea, you check to see if you like it. And if you do, you keep it. And if not, you adjust and kind of just keep asking yourself, does this sound good to me over and over again as you're going through this whole process, okay? And then once you feel your song is done and everything sounds good to you, then you're done, all right? And so we're going to be going over step 4. That's going to be our primary focus today, is this filling in the details aspect of the music process. And the key we're working in today is B flat. Here are the chords and the notes that belong in the key of B flat. And our progression today is fairly simple. It is a C minor to a G minor to an F to an E flat. So it's a 2, 6, 5, 4. And it does that the entire song. It never changes. Now, I told you last week, I think, that I was going to be kind of already setting up our basic template. So I'm going to play this whole song through for you real quick. It's about 4 minutes, give or take. And you're going to notice that that it probably sounds all right, but it's still kind of flat in a few spots. Some of the transitions maybe don't work so well. There's some things that we can do that can really bring this whole thing to life. And I'm going to play the whole thing. We'll go through a little bit of what I've done with the instrumentation so that you can kind of get an idea of the basic steps of 1 through 3 that I did while I was going through this, but the focus today really is that step 4. But we're going to go ahead and just play the song through so you can get an idea of what we're starting with, and then we're going to work to take this song to the next level. I'm actually going to mute these 2 tracks here, these vocals 1 and 2, and you'll see what and then I'll bring them back in later, but because I kind of got ahead of myself to a little degree. This is kind of filling in the details kind of stuff, and so I'm going to mute that for now, but I'm just going to play the basic track for you. And actually, I'm sorry. Before we actually play the whole song through, while you're listening, I want you to ask yourself, what would you do to really bring this song to life? What kind of things do you think you could add or take away or change about this song that would make it pop to life in your own mind? That's the important question to ask. It's not so much what I'm doing, although I'm going to do my best to do what I think is right for the song. really ask yourself what you would do. Like, think how you could make changes to this song that would really bring it to life as you're listening through. All right. All right, so that's what we got so far. Really briefly, I'm just going to kind of show you sort of under the hood what's going on with the different tracks, so you can kind of see what's going on. So we have the drums here, and there's some layering and things going on, but it's relatively simple. We've got the snare on 3. We've got kick on the 1. The the and of 2, the and of 4, and then the and of the, in the next bar we have the and of 1 and then the 2. And then everything else is sort of just like hi-hatty kind of stuff, percussion stuff. We've got an eighth note pattern, I believe, going on with the hi-hat, but I'll just play it real quick for you on its own so you can kind of hear what's going on. Okay. And also included in that are a little bit of some sound effects here and there, but, you know, we've got one kick here, a snare here, some shakery kind of bits going on there that are doing some off beat kind of stuff. Not off beat, but like syncopated rhythms here. Some more hi-hat kind of stuff. And then a sound effect that happens every now and then. And this kind of sound effect can kind of be considered ear candy, so that's kind of built into this drum track already to a degree. But it's just kind of thing that kind of comes in and goes away. You may not even be aware of it really, but it's just like a little thing that kind of enhances what's going on with the song. A little, I don't even know what that is, some kind of percussive, reverby sort of thing. Another sound effect that kind of goes, comes in and goes away. Again, you can consider this kind of thing ear candy to a large degree. It doesn't happen very often, as you can see, just every few bars or whatever, is that like 8 bars? Something like that. We have another kick layer here. So this is doing the exact same thing as that down there. I just layered the kick so that it had a little bit more punch to it. We've got another snare here with a bit of kind of that verby thing. A little sticky stick click kind of thing with some verb that's kind of just adding a little bit of syncopated rhythm to the track. Our main hi-hat rhythm here. And then we've got an open hi-hat here. And a little bit of a reverse thing happening. And then the only real difference between this and the chorus section is we added in this hi-hat, open hi-hat sound here on the choruses, which gives a bit more kind of openness. So if I was to play it real quick. And so that kind of just makes it open up a little bit. So that's the drum track, our main drum track in a nutshell. And it's just kind of really just looping. So I've created a drum loop in a very real sense. And that's kind of what's going on throughout the entire song. I've just taken it out in a few spots. And that's kind of part of the arrangement. And with a conscious focus on trying to make every, at least the verses, kind of distinguished from each other so that they're not the same the whole time. And then we have a little, what I'm calling a drum break kind of thing here. And it's the same drum track or drum kit as this. But I have put an EQ on it, which looks like this. And it's taken away some of the upper frequencies. It's taken away a little bit of the low end. Not a lot, but a little bit. And it's just supposed to make it a little bit smaller sounding. We've got a little bit of a peak here and a peak there. Without it, this is what it sounds like. And then with it, and so it's just kind of doing that. It's a slightly different beat than what's going on with the main drum track as well. Again, just to differentiate it. make it a little bit more unique in this section of the song, so that it's a little bit more interesting as it goes. So it's not the same thing the whole time. That's kind of one of the things you want to avoid, by and large, when you're doing music, is to create some changes throughout the music, so it's not always the same thing over and over and over again. Now I'm using the same 4-chord progression throughout the song, so I'm having to use tricks to play with the dynamics, play with the sounds to make sure that it's remaining interesting throughout the whole thing, and it's not just the same boring, because it can be very monotonous if you're not careful. One of the things I did already with this drum track is, if we look here, is I created a little bit of a fill going into the next section. So this is another kind of part of the detail section, but I kind of jumped the gun a little bit on that, but it's fairly similar. And then it kind of changes a little bit over here towards the end where it's ramping into the next drum section. All right, and so it's got a little bit of a fill sort of thing going on there. And when I say fill, it's just something that the drums do that is different than the normal beat in order to kind of transition into the next section. All right. Next thing we have here is the bass. And this is what the bass looks like. And we'll play it for you here. And then it repeats. So the bass is doing the same thing throughout the entire song when it's happening. I've just pulled it out and in at different sections in order, again, just to keep it, the song interesting and changing, and not the same thing, stuff always happening all the time, right? Even though a lot of the parts are the same, you can make a song interesting or keep a song interesting just by taking in and or taking out and bringing in different instruments at different times in order to kind of keep it fresh and engaging. All right, so you get the idea there. And if you're not listening through a good set of speakers, you may not even hear this bass. It's very low-end heavy. Now, this is, I'm calling it a pad, but this is kind of what I started the song off with. Like the very first thing I did when I started creating this song was I was searching through some sounds, and I came across this sound, and then I put this, I laid this out. And this is what the song began as. It was just this, and then I started adding in other stuff as we went. But this was the very first thing that I started with this song. All right, very simple. The top notes here, E flat and G, are always the same. And then I'm just having this, the tonic notes, the C, the G, the F, and the E flat change. And it's got kind of a syncopated rhythm to a degree, as you can see here. So we got a quarter note here on the C, and then an eighth note with an eighth note rest. And so it's starting on the and of 1. And then beat 2, and then there's a rest, and then beat 3, and the and of 3, and then there's a rest, and then the and of 4. And it's giving this kind of sort of syncopated rhythm here. And you can see here There's an eighth note rest here. It starts on the and of 2, and then it holds for a quarter note, and then there's a rest, and then it starts right on 4. Okay, and so very simple, but this is what the song started as, was this part here. And then here we just have a piano that I reversed and threw some effects on. Without the effects, here's what it sounds like. Okay, and I added some sevenths and some stuff in there as well. So while the basic chord progression is the 2, 6, 5, 4, I've colored some of these chords with some sevenths and some other things in order to just kind of bring it to life a little bit, add a little bit of some texture to the chords. But then I added some EQ, some compression, a little bit of delay, and some reverb to this piano, and then okay. Here's what the EQ looks like. Again, I'm taking out a lot of the top end, a little bit of the low end, and then I've got a pretty big boost here around that 1K, and that's to help give a little bit of a resonance to the piano. I'm compressing it mostly just to keep it from the swells being too quiet at the beginning, so it's keeping it a little bit more even throughout, so the volume changes aren't as drastic between how the quiet and the loud parts. And then added a little bit of echo or delay, and then some reverb to just give it a little bit of ambience. And so again, without it. And then with it. All right, so you kind of get the idea there. Next, I found another synthy sound that kind of has sort of a string-esque sort of vibe to it. It's not string; it's a synthy instrument, but it sounded kind of like a violin-y kind of sort of thing, with some distortion and some other stuff baked in. This is just a sound, but. All right, and that's the same thing throughout as well when it's happening. Just kind of a little sort of melodic thing that happens throughout the song. And then we have some actual strings, pizzicato strings. So they're very plucky. And it's just 4 notes, G, A, B flat, and D. Okay. It can be kind of, it's meant to be a very simple thing that just sort of is a stagnant sort of, I don't know how to explain it, but it's simple. It's just 4 notes the entire time in that kind of rhythm. And then I found another sound to, and then copied this pluck, this string sound, and it's doing the exact same thing, just a different sound to give it a little bit more depth, I guess, a little bit more character. So the strings and this are doing the exact same thing. I just copied and pasted the part, and then when they're played together. So just to add a little bit of vibe to that part. And then we come to the chorus. I added some electric guitars, taking it from kind of like a, I don't even know what the genre of this song would be. Maybe like chill something, whatever. Anyways, I added these guitars in on the chorus just to give the chorus a little bit more oomph. Okay, so that's just a part I played on the guitar to add a little bit of extra oomph to the chorus, and then it's the same part just played twice. You can hear it's not even like perfect. There's little subtle flaws in my playing on this, but I thought it was adding a nice little character on the chorus. I then added these octaves in. On guitar, I'm just playing the same note on two different strings with the guitar at the same time, and they're octaves apart, and threw a little bit of distortion on it, and here's what it sounds like. Okay, and if you're curious, I think the notes here are C, G, F, and G again, just up an octave. And then I added some power chords into it to just really add some oomph and some bite to the song. And those chords again are C minor, but they're power chords, so they're like really just the 1 and 5 of each of the chords without the third in it. That's a C minor, a G, an F, and an E flat, and then all together. And these are doubled, so I played one and I panned it hard left. I played it again, panned it hard right, and then same thing for each of these guitar parts. That's why there's multiple of them. It's the same thing played twice, just panned hard left and hard right, and then we add them all together. Okay. And then the last thing here I added was just a little thing that happened twice in the song, just because I felt like if we're going to have these big guitars here in the choruses, maybe want to introduce them a little bit on the verses. And so here's the first time it happened. This is the copy paste. So I played it once, and then I put it over here. Again, just to add a little bit of whatever. But I also was careful. It didn't seem to fit as well in this second verse, so I left it out. And so it only happens really in this first verse or first section, and then again in this section before the last chorusy section. But this is what it is. And then I've added a bit of EQ, delay, and reverb to it. So without those things, I guess we can just do it this way. But without any effects, this is what it sounds like. Okay, so the EQ is, again, we're cutting off a lot of the lows, some of the highs, and then we're giving a little bit of a boost around 4K-ish, 3.5, 4K-ish, just to kind of bring it out a little bit. But this is to make it kind of a little smaller. Then we've got the delay and the reverb just to give it a little bit of vibe. Kind of push it back a little bit, and kind of give it a little bit of washiness. And that is the main tracks. Then what I did also was I found some vocal samples as a sort of example of what a lyric could do. Now, I only did it for the choruses and not the verses. And this is just an example. For instance, like if we were going to do an actual, like write out actual lyrics and bring in a vocalist, it would probably be different than what this is, but I did want to add an example of what potentially adding in vocals could do and show you how much of a difference it can make to your song. And you could even find other samples if you wanted. If you like how these samples sound on the chorus and you wanted to keep them, you could also find other samples that could potentially work on the verses as well. But the first sample I found was this one. And it's a few different samples that I've combined into one. You can hear I kind of made some chops and some things because the vocal I had originally used wasn't fitting it perfectly well, and so I did some chops and some things that I thought made it a little bit more interesting, but also fit it a little bit into the song better. But this is what it is, and then I think over here it's different. Right, and so. All right, and then that just repeats twice, and then we also have this a different vocal sample as well. And then it repeats. And then I threw on some effects as well. The compressor is mostly to keep the vocal a little bit more even volume-wise as it's being performed for the second part. But I added some stuff on this vocal really in order to put it more into what this vocal is doing, because they're different sort of effects. So if we play both of these parts together without the effects, this is what it sounds like. Okay, and then with the effects on. And so again, some compression to keep it even, some echo and some delay and some reverb in order to kind of bring it more into what this one already had on it, because this sample came with like pretty heavily processed with some reverb and delay and stuff like that. So I tried to match them a little bit better together, closer together. And then EQ'd it also again in order to just sort of again, keep it kind of together a little bit. But I didn't want them to sound exactly the same. I did want a little bit of a difference. And so if we were to play these vocals within the context of the entire song on this chorus section, here's what that would sound like. We'll just back it up a little bit so you can get some reference. But okay. So that's what the vocals are doing, and I really think that it's adding quite a lot to this chorus and making it kind of pop a little bit more than it did without it. So here's without those vocals. So, I mean, and then with the vocals. So I think they're really adding a lot, and so that's another that's an aspect of detail, right? Whether you're using samples or actually singing these lines out with some sort of a melody and lyrics and stuff like that. So, and these are things that you can also add to the verses. It could be like a rap, it could be singing, it could be whatever. But you're just kind of adding in some vocals to fill in the verses and help bring the song to life in that regard. Now, that being said, there are also other things that we can do to really bring this song to life with the details, right? So one of those things is going to be transitions. If you listen, it kind of goes to the verse and then just kind of hits the chorus, and there's nothing to really make you think that anything's coming. It kind of just jumps out of nowhere. And so one of the things you can do in order to sort of help with that sort of thing is to add in either some drum fills or some sweeps, some risers, things like this. And what we can do is find some of that kind of stuff. So like we have some samples here that we can add into our track. Now you can also find these, you can make them yourself. There's a lot of ways to go about it. I'm just doing this because it's probably going to be a little simpler to do it this way. So we'll try one out here and just see what happens. And you may have to play with this in order to get it to hit the right spot. And we're going to turn it down quite a bit because these tend to be pretty loud. But here's what it's doing. And then if we were to and I think that's helping kind of bring in that chorus a little bit more. Another thing that we can do is do a sort of a crash kind of a sound here. And we can play with these too. So like I may not keep this one, but you can kind of play with these sounds a little bit. But this is called like it's sort of like a crash in a real sense. Here's what it's doing. Okay, but if we were to so we're just gonna, and that's fine for now. I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to find the right perfect thing for this detail thing, but like you can search through sounds and make sure that you find exactly what it is you want. But if we were to back this up a little bit and play it, it's going to feel a little bit more impactful with this. Now, then that's not the only thing we can do. We can also add in a drum fill to make it seem a little bit more like something's coming. Now, I like this, but I feel like we need to find something that's maybe a little bit longer as well. So let's see if we can find something that starts a little bit sooner or lasts a little bit longer. So I think that's better. And if we wanted to, we could also stretch this out a little bit so that it started even sooner. So maybe we call this riser long. And I think that's just helping to make this a little bit better. So that's our first verse. Now, one thing you want to do, there's a thing that, or an adage that they use in magic, which is you can produce the same illusion, but you don't want it to be produced in the same way twice. All right. So while we can use this riser for this first verse going into the chorus, we don't necessarily want to use this same trick every single time. Otherwise, it's going to get stale. That doesn't mean we can't have them in everyone, but that means we want to maybe look to do some other things as well in these other choruses or these other transitions in order to really get the... so it's not like we're using the same trick over and over and over again, right? But we'll get there when we get there. So one thing I want to do here is I want to find probably an 808-ish kind of drum sound. And you can do this with the drums that you already have. Like we could do this with this drum set if we wanted to, but I wanted to do something a little bit with a different sound. So I'm going to call this drum fills here. And find like an 808 kind of. And I think that's kind of the sound we're looking for right there. And so we can go in. And we'll start here and just kind of see what's going on. All right, that's too soon. So maybe we'll start here instead. And then we may even want to do And then with these, maybe what we want to do is just have them rise a little bit. Maybe a little bit. And then another thing that we can do for funsies is use a sound shifter here. And let these be maybe rise up as it's going. So I'll show you what I mean. We're going to write in some automation here. And we're going to make this more I don't know what the right word is, where it's more of a line here. We don't need that anymore. And so here's what it's actually doing here. Why is that not? Okay, let's try this one more time because for some reason this is not reading this correctly. So let's start at 0 again here. Okay, so that's better. All right. So that is much better there. And now we have a bit of a fill going into our chorus there. And then another thing we may want to look at doing is throwing in a crash. So let's go and find a crash. And this is a cymbal crash for drum kit. And this is going to, again, these are the little details that really help kind of bring out the kit here. So let's find a sample here, a one shot, and we want to find a drum rather. We want to find a cymbal crash. So maybe something like this would be fine. Piano roll here. Turn that down a bit, but now, and actually, maybe what we want to do even is find another crash to go along with that. And layer them on top of each other. we'll back it up so we can get a bit of perspective here. But I think between the these risers and the crash, we're gonna just kind of put them all up here for now. Okay, yeah, so the crash might be still a little bit loud, but I think that's helping to transition better into our chorus here. So if we were to mute everything we just added, the fill, the riser, the impact, all this stuff, these 5 tracks that we've added here. It just doesn't have the same kind of impact. And so that helping transition into that chorus a little bit better, and just bringing this to life a little bit, right? And these are the kinds of things that you can do. We can even take this then and have it happen again. Okay, but maybe we want to do a little bit different stuff here. Like I said, you want to have things be a little bit different, right? When you're doing this kind of stuff, otherwise it'll just get stale again, right? Even though we're adding these kind of things. So what we maybe want to do is do a different type of drum fill here instead of using what we have already done here with this. Maybe we can try something a little bit different. Actually, maybe try something like this. And it's trial and error. Don't be afraid to experiment. This is the fun part about, the music is kind of being able to play with this sort of thing. And then maybe it's kind of like a dance EDM kind of trick here, where you have the snare go faster and faster and faster as it progresses. And it may not be super appropriate. I'm just trying to like give you some ideas and some thoughts on how you can go about sort of getting these to be different. And again, we can maybe have this sort of rise up as it goes. And these are maybe too quiet here. Okay. And so we're changing up a little bit. And then on the last transition here, what I thought might be good would be to actually have it cut for a bar. Maybe not everything, but so. Yeah, actually, I think that works really well. And then we'll take this crash. Maybe just expand this a little bit so we can actually see it. And then have the crash happen here along with the impact. Okay. Excuse me. All right. Now I think that's just better in general. We have some fun transitions going into the different sections here. We've made them a little bit different from each other. Now we can also add in some other little things here or there. So like with these drums here, you hear that like wah 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 wah. So that's little ear candy stuff that you can have kind of going on throughout your song as well. So what we may want to do is just find some sounds and we can have them just sort of kind of show up every here and there and do something that's kind of interesting, and then you never hear them again. And these are little examples of ear candy. And actually, this might be another good example of where we want that to start. So we call this riser 2, I guess. And because it's got a bit of a tail on it, actually, let's see here. Is that, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to audio because I want it to stop once it hits here. I don't want it to kind of keep going like it did, right? So we're going to stop it there. And I think that's pretty cool too. So it's got kind of like a little, right? And we're going to add in that on our second verse and only on our second verse. And again, this is just to keep things different, right? We don't want the same transitions happening every single time or it'll get stale. And so this is just a little something extra on the second verse when it comes around. That's going to make it just that much more unique and special. But that's not what we were actually looking for in the first place. So we're actually going to go back and see if we can find some just fun ear candy stuff that we can, like I said, play throughout the song that kind of just grabs your attention for a second and then just goes away. So like this sort of thing, I think, would be cool. And maybe we have that happen kind of here-ish, where this guitar comes in. And we don't want it to be very long. We don't want it to be very loud. Okay. And so we have that kind of happening subtly here. Maybe we bring that back in one more time on the third verse here. Just subtle. You can barely hear it, but it's just a little something that kind of comes up and makes it a little bit more interesting, right? And so you're looking for these very small, subtle things here that you can sort of add in at spots to just add some interest and some variety to your song as it's going, right? And so we can kind of keep looking through here and see if we can find anything else that might be fun. Let's turn this down some here. So, I don't know, maybe something like that would be fun. And maybe put that somewhere here in the second verse. And it never happens anywhere else. Maybe let that go a little longer. maybe even a little longer. Okay. And these can be like sound effects here, like I'm doing. They can also be like little musical runs, like a quick boom, or whatever. Like it could be a lot of different things. I'm just playing with the effects aspects of it here, and just kind of seeing what what kind of fun stuff we can add in. And you can add as much or as little of this stuff as you want. You can have it be all over the place or just in a certain spot or two. And turn it down again. You know what? I might actually use this here on this last section. Turn it down quite a bit. And make sure that it goes. Like that ends a little short. There. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. If it doesn't, we don't have to use it. Okay. Maybe we actually start this. Yeah, so it's not working quite as well as I would like, so we can find something else. Okay, so maybe something like this would be fun. Sure, why not? That can be fun. But yeah, you can do like find these little things and search around, find what works, what doesn't work. And these are the little things that are just gonna kind of bring the track to life. Now, like I said, the most important thing that's going to bring this track to life in a very real sense is going to be like lyrics and vocals. As you can see on these like chorus sections, how much of a difference they really, really do make. But you can find little things like this ear candy kind of stuff that's just going to sort of help to make the song a little bit more interesting as you're going along, right? I keep forgetting to turn things down. Okay, so something like this maybe would be fun. You just find some spots to put it, and this one can kind of come in and out in some different spots as well. Oop. Actually, with this, I think I want to extend this a little bit as well. So I think I'm going to convert this to audio. And then we're going to go ahead and just stretch it some. And then we'll just put it in random spots. Yeah, maybe not stretched out that much. Let's see, about maybe here. And let's maybe throw a compressor on it so that it's sticking out a little bit more. And then again, we'll just go ahead and actually, probably what I want to do here is put it on an audio track. we will delete the original MIDI synth, whatever. And then we're going to put it in just some random spots. Probably not. And so you get an idea of what kind of things you can do to start filling out the sound and, you know, making it come to life a little bit more. There's a lot of other things that we could do. The biggest one, like I said, being some vocals and things like that. You can always use samples like I did here on the choruses. But some lyrics and some lyrics and some singing, or a fun melodic instrument that you can kind of have playing throughout. If you want to go that route as well, would be cool too. It's just a matter of making it, you know, really, and that will help bring this song to life. But I think the little things, the little subtle things that we've done to this song have really made a difference. I'm just going to play the whole song all the way through, so you can kind of get a gauge of, what it sounds like now as opposed to before, and you can tell me what you think in the comments. So I think those little touches kind of really brought the song to life, allowed it to breathe more. The vocals, the effects, the risers and impacts, and all that kind of stuff, all these little subtle effects. And there's even more you could do to really bring this to life if you so chose to. There's little like stops or whatever. Like you can do other cuts, like we did here, where maybe you cut the drums or the bass or some other instruments or whatever. In certain sections or certain spots, you can add more to the chorus, like some harmonies or things like that in the second half to kind of like really keep it going and moving. There's all sorts of things that you can do to a song to really sort of bring it to life, and it's adding in those little touches, those little details that kind of really make a big difference as you're going. But I thought it'd be worthwhile going through and just showing you a few of the little things that you can do in your productions. And just a few, kind of ideas. Now, I think we're going to try and do some more of these types of things going forward. What I may do is just, I think for next week, what I'm going to do is go through a production breakdown of a full song that I produced with a buddy of mine that a phenomenal artist that I work with. And I'll just take you through the song and all the little things that we did to kind of to make the song and how you could kind of go about doing that sort of thing yourself. One of the things that I'm trying to do in this series is show you how you can kind of do some of like this stuff without even really knowing how to play an instrument. Now, that being said, I added quite a bit of guitar here. So what I want to do is I'm just going to mute these guitars and play just a little section of the song so you can hear what it sounds like without the guitars. Because you may not even like what I've done here. It might be a little, the guitars might be a little too much or whatever. So I'm going to play it just without the guitars here, so that just to prove that even like they may be adding something, but you don't necessarily need to have these in here in order to still be able to do all of this, right? The rest of this kind of production stuff. So you don't have to play piano, you don't have to play guitar in order to make music, as long as you kind of understand the basic fundamentals of your music theory, like what chords and what notes will work inside a key that you're in, and how to program in the MIDI, as we've been going through and showing you with, just putting in the notes and making them longer, shorter, etc. But here, I'm just going to play a snippet of the song without the guitar so you can sort of hear what's going on. And so you can use other instruments besides guitars. That being said, there's nothing wrong with using guitars if you happen to be able to play a guitar, piano, violin, any instrument whatsoever. Feel free to add those types of things into your productions to help bring them to life and add the kind of character that you want to add with your own sort of touch. So anyways, like I said, next week we're going to do a production breakdown. So I'm going to go through another song and show you kind of all the little things that we did to make the song pop and work and stuff like that. The last step here, I guess, would be to sort of like mix this down. Once you've kind of finished adding in all the extra little details and stuff, you can mix this and it'll sound even better than it does here. None of this is mixed. I just kind of threw a few effects here or there just to sort of add some character and ambiance. But so next week we're going to do a production breakdown on a song that a buddy and I worked with together that we produced, and we'll go through that, and we'll cover more of the detail stuff and how you can kind of apply some of these types of thought processes and ideas into your own musical productions to help really bring them to life once you've kind of put the framework together, and have that going. The little details will really help sort of put the finishing touches on your song. And I hope that this has been helpful in giving you some ideas on how to do that. With that, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.